All right, so the piece that I'm going to be doing for this project is the song Second Chance by Shinedown. So, one thing that I wanted to talk about before I get into anything else is that the very beginning, there's a couple of beats. It's a sort of fade in done by a synthesizer type of instrument. It's definitely up to debate on whether or not this is okay, on whether or not you think it's part of this whole chart. However, I believe that it isn't, because when it's like this, the golden section is timed excellently, and I feel like it would make more sense judging by the length of the chorus and the verses before it. So this is what it sounds like. So that little fade in before the first guitar beat, I feel like it's not exactly a rhythm and it's not the start of the piece. I feel like it's sort of a warning, like, hey, we're about to start playing now. Something else that I thought was really important to mention is this measure right here in between the intro and the first verse. It's sort of like an empty measure. So you can hear it. You can hear the guitar and the drums. They're sort of building up suspense in the same way that this fade in did. But it throws it off right from the start. So you have four steady strum beats, right? Four steady guitar beats. And then you have an empty measure building up suspense, which will set the song off by putting the first verse off. So let's listen to that. Beat starts with the first verse. Something else that I thought was kind of interesting to note is that all of the parts of this song, except for the chorus, are all even in sets of 4 or 8. Like the verse and pre-chorus and bridge are all 8 bars, and the intro is 4, but the chorus is 13, which is interesting because you would expect the chorus to be something that would bring the piece together, but instead it's the least stable thing. So the placement of this measure that throws off the chorus, the last one right here, is also pretty prevalent because what he's saying is supposed to be profound. It's the last line of the chorus, and then that leads to a little bit of an instrumental break for a couple beats, and then you start the second verse. Something else that I want to mention is that these two sections are actually on hypermetrically. So the chorus, which is off, the chorus starts on an off measure. However, it brings it back. So this second bit is in line. And then when you have the third chorus, it would make sense because now you finally had some sort of stability. You have that third measure to throw it off. It's perfectly timed with the golden section and the start of the bridge, and that'll throw it back off. So here at the end of the bridge, we're going to see again that there is one of these empty measures. It's not necessarily empty. So what we see in this empty measure, this purple measure, here, let's listen to. Not only does it kind of not really feel like 4/4, but it also is very similar to this empty measure here. You have nothing but the drums, and you have this suspension building up to when he's going to start again. I also like that when you start the final chorus, it is off. However, he does repeat the final phrase a couple of times, and in doing that, he actually makes it end out all right. And one could argue, in the same way as the very beginning, that the ending is technically a little bit over that mark, so it would end offset. However, I feel like since the rest of the accompaniment stops in that last measure, I think it allows for some sort of wiggle room and some sort of false closure. So let's listen to that. I've skipped it to the very end, right where it gets different from the choruses that have happened before. So let's put that on. To argue in that scenario that it actually does fade past there and it ends off. And that would help the idea of ending it on a cliffhanger, a way of a way of expressing those unresolved feelings that he has as a writer. But I personally like the idea of it ending with just a fade out at the end. I think it works fairly well with making the pickup make sense, and I feel like it's more fluid with the feeling of the song. And another thing that I wanted to mention was the golden section. So I did the math, and there are 88 measures in this piece, right? Which would put the golden section right here, which doesn't make too much sense. I mean, you're getting closer to the bridge. However, I did take the recording length, which was 3 minutes and 43 seconds, and the golden section of that was right here. And I think that does an excellent job. It's right at the bridge. He's holding out a really long high note, and it's a high moment of conflict for the musician. So I think it's a really good placement, but I didn't know why the measures got the golden section over here. So it could partially be because of this in the very beginning. It could be because of the fade out at the end. I personally think it might also be because a little bit of the tempo, because, you know, for to add to the expression of the piece, you might pull the tempo in certain spots. But overall, I think it's interesting that the amount of measures doesn't really correlate to where the actual golden section ended up being in recording, because it really felt right. It goes exactly where you want it to be. It's when there is the most conflict, and it seems to be resolved by the end of it. So all in all, I think the hypermeter of this piece is actually super interesting. I want to see what other people think. I've been meaning to ask a couple of my friends on whether they think that this pickup counts as a measure or not, or if it even is off at all. Um, I also think it's up for debate on whether or not the extra measure in the chorus is in the end or not. It could be debated many ways on where you think that extra third measure could be. Um, but there is no doubt that there is one. So I think it's all up for debate, and I think it's very interesting. Um, so yeah, so that's everything I had to say. So I hope that's good. All right. Awesome. Thank you.